And welcome back. This will be a recap of session 30, the Masquerade Heist Part 2. So they have half the group is upstairs while the other half is downstairs trying to keep a guard from going back to post after putting it to sleep. Magically, the players attack a guard standing outside of a door, and they use hold person on her, and then Enzo attacks her with his sword. That's where we last left off. And they have a bugbear in like an adjacent room that is searching as the door was opened by mage hand by another party member. So they have surprise and they're able to basically kill this lady in I think 1 or 2 rounds. As they kill her, the bugbear's like, what's going on out there? Wanting to know. After they kill the lady, they then drag her body off to the side, off to the corner, as the other bugbear is coming out of the room, hearing some noises and half buying what the players are saying, like, oh, I bumped into something and things of that nature. As the bugbear walks out of the room after investigating, looking for intruders, the whole party again makes a surprise attack on this guy. So they really did well at planning their movements and holding actions to attack people to get the jump on them. Then once they killed this bugbear, they put it back in its room. I jumped back down to Olivax, Blasius, and Waldo, and I did a lot of moving around throughout the session as the party split in many different occasions and in different sizes and things like that. So it was a bit of a juggle for me moving around, which I think it worked out fine, and I think the players didn't feel like they were waiting their turn, things like that. It really felt fluid. In my opinion. I'm sure I could have done a lot better, but yeah, so we went back down to Waldo and Olivax. The guard wakes up, gets his drink, then I have Waldo make a persuasion check because he's trying to persuade him to stay in there, and he rolls really low, and he's like, thank you, buddy, I'm not sick, I need to go back to my post, and he walks out and back down. Then they don't know what to do now, so they just decide to stay in this room for a bit and hang out and kind of regroup. While they're doing that, we went back up to the top, and they then knock on the door, and they hold their actions again for whoever opens this door. He asks for the key phrase. They give the phrase strengthen unity or strengthen the chain, something along those lines. Then they attack this big mountainous warrior guy who opens the door, who has a great sword on his back, and he has a scroll in his hands. Not the Black Iron Pact scroll, but just a different scroll. They start attacking him. He does just fine. Enzo teleports in and kind of flanks him on his side while the other ones are flanking him from the front of the door. Enzo then leaves his space, so he attacks him with his great sword, putting the scroll in his pocket temporarily. The battle ensues. They had surprise, so they got 1 full round before he gets to attack. I made this guy really beefy because that's who they would put in charge of guarding this Black Iron Pact, kind of like a last resorts type thing. They weren't able to get him to go down in 1 or 2 rounds, and then he read a scroll and he cast Thunderwave, which casts a loud boom. Kind of shortcomings on my end on this side. I should have had this. I looked at the spell before the session, but when we were playing, the name of the spell, I totally spaced on it. So I had to look it up, and it took me a while to find it because I couldn't remember what it was called. So I had to scroll through all the spells trying to find this dang cantrip or first level spell, but I had it upcast. I also forgot that and they all failed their saves, Theron and Tink, who's standing out in front of the door. So they get blasted by this thunder wave, and there's a loud boom. And Olivax and Waldo hear like this shuddering, and they're like, oh, that's our cue, basically. So then they go out, and Waldo wants to make a distraction, and we kind of collaborated. I think this was a good job by me to kind of like pause. He wanted to break the window in the room they were in as they were leaving, but it didn't really jive with what he was wanting to do, as like he was trying to get people to go in a different direction. So the plan that he came up with instead, because it kind of steered him out of that direction and into something else, kind of like where everyone was, to get them to turn, he decided to summon a bear and quickly put a firework in its mouth and then light it and have it run across. So that's what it did. And the door that entered the main ballroom was closed. It's like a swinging door, and they usually had it open, but when they went in there, they closed it, which is like totally fine. The guards don't care. On the other side, there's the same thing, but they had this one open because that's where the servers were going back and forth. But this bear runs through, and firework goes off, and it like shatters the big chandelier glass, not the brass that it was on it, but all of the glass kind of like showers down on everyone beneath it. And then I explain, like, you just hear all these noises, and they levitate this bear off the ground. They get pummeled with all this high-level magic at this like inner room with a bunch of high nobles. Like some of the great noble houses are in this room. So it's hit with full force, and I say like just disintegrates, puffs out into dust, and comes back to you right away. And then they run out and tell the guards that something came from that way to try to deter them from going to the other corner of the house. They wanted to come to the south side of the house. So while that was going on, I paused and we went back upstairs. And then the group was able to get the black iron pack. They killed the guy after like 2 or 3 rounds. Wink then went inside and he found the black iron pack, which was in like a glass case with like a small lock on it. There was no magical locks on it. And I explained like the scroll was jet black and the air around it was like being distorted as if it was like on fire. Just like the heat, you know, like when it distorts the air and gives that like mirage type look. That's that. It wasn't hot, but that's the kind of look it was giving. Made up that on the spot. I knew I wanted to have some sort of cool area effect that it gives off, as there is like really high level magic on this. So that's what I came up with in the moment. So then they kill the guy and they run back out, and Waldo and Olvax, we then go back down and they do another distraction where he does the same thing. He summons a pelican and has it run down another corridor, kind of like on the opposite side of the ballroom. And it has more fireworks this time, and it goes off and they all kill it again. But the players are able to see like out the window from the top of the courtyard, and they like see these things, lights flashing from downstairs, and they assume like, okay, they're like causing a distraction. So it's kind of like a check-in. Also, I wanted to mention that Theron tried to cast message while they were in the room downstairs, and it didn't work. And I feel like he was kind of frustrated because he wanted it to work. It went down the stairs just fine. But it says that it can't pass through solid objects unless you know they're in the room. So you can't cast message on the room adjacent to you if the doors close unless you know they're in there. So since he didn't know exactly where they were, he just kind of knew the area. That's why I didn't have it go through. I think I'm pretty lenient as far as like things working and rules and things like that. So I don't feel bad when I like kind of shut them down on these certain aspects. Just like, nope, it didn't work. Sorry, because I don't feel like this campaign is difficult by any means. So, and the whole point is to have fun, but certain things just don't work. I'm not just going to make them work just because of brevity or not wanting to have to deal with it or laziness or anything like that. So that's kind of where my head was at. So once we went back up to the top after the bird distraction went out, and Waldo stepped into a different room and he cast it. So again, no one has any idea. And it's getting the guards that were going upstairs to come back down to kind of address like these other issues, as they think they're being attacked from one side of the house particular, but now it's both top and bottom floor, whereas before it was just the top floor. So it was working. However, there were guards that were already going upstairs to deal with the original threat. So as they were kind of finishing off these guards, Enzo transformed himself by casting Alter Self into a bugbear, which transforms your body. There's not an illusion. So if you touched him, you would feel fur in his arms and stuff like that. Just his height doesn't go up a foot or anything. He stays the same height. It's just his appearance. So they had good disguises and things like that. So the guard came in and he was like, what's going on? They're like, oh, someone tried to break in and steal the scroll in here. So then the person goes over there to check it out, and then they all attack him again and get surprised and kill her. And then right as they kill the guard, another guard like walks in at the exact same time, and they're like, she was trying to attack us. And they're like, we just saw you kill him. So that was funny. So then they disperse all the guards, and there were other guards chasing him up. They hadn't seen him quite yet. So then they decided to split. At this time, Tink and Wink decide to go out the window via teleportation. Technically, this should not have worked. He had a scroll of Vortex Warp. However, how he did it was he had Tink hop in his own bag of holding, and then Wink cast Vortex Warp. However, you can't cast it on yourself. I did have to remind them, like, Vortex Warp was not the stick of the Erdtree that they had, which is 2 sticks. You put one wherever you want, and then when you break the other stick, it teleports you and anyone within like a certain radius of you to the other stick on any plane. That was given to them way back when they met Emanuele, the grandson of Ida, the halfling who was killed by the orcs. But they didn't write down the item, even though like I explicitly told them. Everything is recorded. If they had questions, they can always reach out to me, as well as I gave the Vortex Warp scroll to Wink, and I explained how everything worked and things like that. So it was kind of, I know there's just a lot of things going on, so it's totally fine for me to have to remind them, like, nope, that's not the item you have. You have this item. I also was okay with the Vortex Warp spell doing teleporting himself, just because it was a one-time use thing, and it was a very rare scroll. So they got that from Lysara the Dragon. So I want them to use magic items. So for me to be very technical on the magic items, that's kind of the opposite of them using it, because it's like all these technicalities on hoops they have to jump through. So that's why I allowed it to work. So then once that happened, Enzo and Thadon then ran into the ballroom at the top, and a guard was there coming up, and they're like, we saw him go this way, teleport to the other side of the house, so they went down. And as they walked down, Enzo wanted to cast Fog Cloud, which is a concentration spell out of his ring of spell storing. So he did that when they got to the bottom floor, and that kind of took a while for me to like understand, like, what are you trying to do? What is your goal? Instead of you just like saying you want to do something when you're not fully understanding the consequences. I was very close to just say, yep, okay, this is what you do, and then explain the consequences. I think sometimes the players have an idea in their mind, and they just say what they're going to, like, this, I'm going to do this, without like telling me what their intention is. Because if they just told me what their intention was, we can kind of collaborate a little bit and do what they want. So it took a little bit of coercing to get it out, but we got it out. So Enzo and Theron got to the bottom of the staircase. He then cast Fog Cloud, which was almost immediately dispersed, but it allowed his disguise of Alter Self to drop in the meantime. Then the guard was like asking, like, oh, where'd the other bugbear go? To which Theron replied, like, oh, I have no idea. Then the guard went and got the Lady Cleverly, Seraphina Cleverly, so the leader of the house, and she was like, okay, where are we going? And then Theron kind of gave a story to how to make a persuasion check, and I had the DC be very high because you're talking to the leader of the house, someone who was very competent and very powerful. So I made the DC 15, I believe, or 20, I don't remember, but he got it on the first try with just one roll, no advantage or anything. So that was awesome. So then he was partnered up with another bugbear, and they kind of all went out 2 by 2 to kind of look for the traitor, as they know now that they were betrayed by some sort of guard, because there's no way in heck they would have been able to get out. Then we jump back to Waldo and Olivax, who had left basically by that point. Right after they did their distractions, they're like, okay, it's time to go. So they left, and on their way out, they grabbed some goodie bags, which I'm excited for because I have some things prepared as far as like what's in the goodie bags. So I'm excited for them to open those. Then we jumped over to Wink and Tink, who were in a tree outside, as they could see guards looking around at the bottom for them, as well as a guard on the roof. Then they used another teleport, forgot which one it was, to teleport like to the street over. And then they walked their way back and they met up with Olivax and Waldo. Then Enzo kind of left on his own, as Theron was partnered with another guard, so he kind of just left with another group, trying to blend in, so he was able to leave by himself. And then we just had Theron looking through brush and stuff with another guard, looking for the perpetrators, which were themselves. He then casts Tasha's Hideous Laughter to try and get the guy to go prone and incapacitate him so then he could book. He cast the spell once and it failed. He then used his Ring of Recall, which Enzo gave him, which was given to them by Droll way back when, after their first mission. He then cast it again and it landed, and then he just booked it straight out. And he looked like a House Cleverly guard, so as he was running, he like put his disguise back on that he had before, and then they all left and are going to go straight to the Lady of Masks, and that's where we ended it. I thought the session overall was good. I thought they had fun. I thought that the end of the heist wasn't as good, I think, as the first part, but I think that it had a satisfying ending and kind of a good momentum into the next part of the Act 2 of this story that they're in. They now get to narrow down which lieutenant they're going to kill and find where they're at and make plans to actually do so and get a lot of information. I am kind of worried about this next session that we're having tonight, as I believe it will be a little bit more lore heavy as they get information on all 4 lieutenants, as well as now they have the Black Iron Pact. They're going to want to read it with Lady of Masks. The Black Iron is kind of lengthy. I have it pretty short. The Black Iron Pact is something I was inspired from / stole the idea from Matt Colville. So credit to you for making that. It's so brilliant. I just love the world of Matt Colville. There's a lot of it, the inspiredness of Ragnar the Invincible, which is based on Ajax the Invisible in my game. So a lot of overlapping there, although I just take the concepts and use them. It's not verbatim the exact same, as Matt Colville's campaign has lots of things unexplained, so I kind of get to take what's not explained and run with it, which I really enjoy as well. So stay tuned for session 31 to see how the players react to the Lady of Masks giving them information on all the lieutenants and which lieutenant they'll decide to try and kill. I'm trying to steer them to kill Oshi the Wild for many reasons, and I've already introduced her as the villain. They also have met the curator, who was the frog in the last episode. So I'm excited to see how all of that dynamic plays out. But if you've lasted this long, thank you for staying and watching. We will see you in session 31. Have a great rest of your day. Get out of here. We'll see you later.